Many people have begun to find connections between A Song of Ice and Fire and the works of H.P. Lovecraft, especially after the release of The World of Ice and Fire and the introduction of Euron Greyjoy. One important connection that doesn't have much discussion is between Lovecraft and R'hllor. R'hllor is said to be important to the endgame of A Song of Ice and Fire, so any information that we could glean about him could reveal secrets about our story. In this video, we will explore the nature of the religion of the Red God, Ahai, the origin of dragons, and Azor Ahai himself. In the end, we will discover that Azor Ahai Reborn may be something much different than we previously believed. What is dead may never die is a reference to Lovecraft's work. Lovecraft's version is, that is not dead, which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die. Martin's version is the mantra of the drowned god, and the entire religion of the drowned god is very Lovecraftian, complete with krakens and deep ones. The name R'hllor looks like it's an attempt to create a name for a Lovecraft god. It looks like R'lyeh, the corpse city of Cthulhu that is referenced in World of Ice and Fire by Stgai, the corpse city. I wondered if the mantra of the Red God, the night is dark and full of terrors, might be a reference to Lovecraft as well. I searched the phrase over and over with no results. Eventually I realized that the phrase, like the drowned god mantra, wouldn't be copied word for word. Eventually I found this passage from Lovecraft's The Other Gods. The moon is dark, and the gods dance in the night. There is terror in the sky, for upon the moon hath sunk an eclipse foretold in no books of men or of earth's gods. The Other Gods is a story about reaching for the power of the gods, a theme that is explored heavily in A Song of Ice and Fire. A high priest of the gods of earth climbs a sacred mountain to look upon the true face of his gods. His apprentice decides to turn back, but the high priest, in his hubris, climbs to the top, and he's horrified at the result. He sees not the gods of earth, but the true gods, the other gods, the eldritch entities of legend such as Cthulhu. One of the strongest themes of Lovecraft's cosmic horror is the burden of knowledge. It is better to stay ignorant than to discover things that men are not meant to know. There are many hints that R'hllor is not the benevolent god of goodness that Melisandre claims, and this is something that has been picked up on by the fandom from the beginning. Perhaps this Lovecraft story gives us a hint about R'hllor's true nature. Perhaps Melisandre is the character that will discover the true nature of her god and be driven to madness, like the high priest from the story The Other Gods. The religion of the Red God seems to come from Ahai, and beyond Ahai is the river Ash, and Martin's version of Cthulhu's corpse city. Most sinister of all the sorcerers of Ahai are the Shadowbinders, whose lacquered masks hide their faces from the eyes of gods and men. They alone dare to go upriver past the walls of Ahai and into the heart of darkness. On its way from the mountains of the Morn to the sea, the Ash runs howling through a narrow cleft in the mountains, between towering cliffs so steep and close that the river is perpetually in shadow, save for a few moments at midday when the sun is at its zenith. In the caves that pockmark the cliffs, demons and dragons and worse make their lairs. The farther from the city one goes, the more hideous and twisted these creatures become, until at last one stands before the doors of the Stgai, the corpse city at the shadow's heart, where even the Shadowbinders fear to tread, or so the stories say. Ahai's inner city of Stgai is a reference to the dwelling of one of Lovecraft's gods. Ahai seems to be the birthplace of R'hllor's religion. We theorize that R'hllor is a Lovecraftian entity. It stands to reason that Stgai is the dwelling of R'hllor itself. Is R'hllor actually a giant psychic tentacled alien? Probably not, but it doesn't have to be literally Cthulhu to have similar elements. If I had to make a guess, based on George R. R. Martin's typical style, I would say that R'hllor is some kind of hive mind. But regardless of what it actually is, we can deduce that it is steeped in Lovecraftian elements, and this may reveal more about this mysterious entity, its religion, and its power. Ahai is heavily associated with dragons. Dany's dragon eggs are from Ahai. People from Ahai supposedly taught the Valyrians how to tame dragons, as well as other dark magics. Bran actually sees living dragons roosting in the Heart of Shadow, before Dany's dragons are even hatched in the first book. His vision of the Heart of Shadow and its dragons is paralleled with the vision of the Heart of Winter, the icy abode of the others. It makes sense that Bran has been given a glimpse of two gods, two sources of power, ice and fire. While we can't trust what Melisandre says, this does fit with her review of R'hllor and the Great Other as opposing forces. This would mean that R'hllor is based in Asshai, and he is associated with dragons. It's not a stretch to associate R'hllor with dragons. Mel talks about them a lot in her religious rants, including mentioning Azor Ahai waking dragons from stone. If Asshai is the origin of dragons, perhaps they came from Styggai and R'hllor itself. The World Book describes the monsters on the River Ash being more and more twisted the closer they get to Styggai. I would wager that dragons are actually the spawn of R'hllor, or whatever it is that lies at the Heart of Shadow. Cthulhu is a slumbering god who periodically sends cryptic dreams to those special few who are attuned to it. Does R'hllor send dreams? What would those dreams look like? Well, they would be cryptic and maddening, and perhaps they would involve shadows and fire and dragons. Well, it just so happens that we have a special few who are receiving cryptic, maddening dreams about fire and dragons. The Valyrian connection to Asshai, mentioned in the World Book, may be the reason why Valyrians are attuned to these dreams. Perhaps the ancients performed unspeakable rites to get dragon blood and the power that comes from it, from R'hllor at the Heart of Shadow. Perhaps only certain Red Priests can receive legitimate visions from R'hllor because they have dragon blood. Dragon dreams were in House Targaryen around the time of the Doom, and as far as we know, they disappeared until Maekar's sons, who include Maester Aemon and Egg of Duncan Egg. They may have come back because of genetics, perhaps involving the boy's Dane mother, but perhaps the dreams are cyclical, much like the dreams sent by Cthulhu. Many characters say that magic is returning to the world, and perhaps this means that R'hllor and his icy counterpart are becoming more active. Many theorize that the unusual cycle of seasons of Planetos are related to gods of ice and fire, and cyclical influence of gods is very similar to Lovecraft. R'hllor being steeped in Lovecraftian influence may reveal a more sinister truth about the religion of the Red God, and it may reveal a dark origin for dragons and dragon dreams. But what about Azor Ahai? The Savior prophecy goes hand in hand with the religion of R'hllor. Is Azor Ahai yet another Lovecraft connection? Of course it is. There's an obscure outer god in Lovecraft mythos called Azor Ahai. Any of the similarities to Lovecraft that I have pointed out could be seen as coincidences when viewed individually, but the presence of so many potential references grouped around the same concepts really supports the fact that they are intentional references by the author. Azor Ahai's nemesis, the Bloodstone Emperor, is yet another Lovecraft call-out. He worships a black stone that fell from the sky, and he founded the Church of Starry Wisdom, a direct reference to Lovecraft mythos. If there is a twist, like in the Other Gods, that R'hllor is actually an eldritch abomination, does this mean that there is a twist with Azor Ahai as well, since his name is another call-out? Many have noticed the similarities between the Azor Ahai story of Nissa Nissa and the Bloodstone Emperor's blood betrayal. Both worked blood magic and sacrificed a loved one to gain power. Many are starting to believe that Azor Ahai was the Bloodstone Emperor. Azor Ahai caused the Long Night, not ended it. After reading the World Book and making these connections to Lovecraft, I discovered that another fan had come to similar conclusions regarding Azor Ahai, but from a completely different angle. Lucifer Means Lightbringer analyzes the mythology, astronomy, and symbolism of A Song of Ice and Fire, and he discovered an omnipresent archetype that reveals Azor Ahai to be a Luciferian villain. Lightbringer doesn't mean bringing light to stop the long night. It means stealing the fire of the gods, which is what Lucifer means. Azor Ahai's blood sacrifice was essentially the original sin, the Promethean act of hubris that brought darkness into the world. How do the others fit into this? Well, I will go into Lovecraft connections to the Great Other in a future video, but with Azor Ahai and the Long Night, I would surmise that the Night's King created the Others, and he is an ice parallel to the Bloodstone Emperor Azor Ahai. So if Azor Ahai was a villain, a worshipper of eldritch power, is that relevant to the current story? I'm not sure that there will be a single character that is the reborn last hero, or Azor Ahai, or Night's King. I see them primarily as archetypes that are fulfilled by a variety of characters. That's why you see so much argument about who Azor Ahai Reborn is, because the author intentionally gives many characters traits of this archetype. But if I had to choose one character to be the frontrunner for fulfilling a prophecy and becoming Azor Ahai Reborn, it would have to be a kinslayer, a godslayer, someone using forbidden Lovecraftian power in an attempt to cause another Long Night, a new Bloodstone Emperor. This is from the Forsaken chapter, from Winds of Winter. Euron showed the world his blood eye now, dark and terrible. Clad head to heel in scale as dark as onyx, he sat upon a mound of blackened skulls as dwarves capered round his feet and a forest burned behind him. The bleeding star bespoke the end, he said to Aeron. These are the last days, when the world shall be broken and remade. A new god shall be born from the graves and charnel pits. Then Euron lifted a great horn to his lips and blew, and dragons and krakens and sphinxes came at his command and bowed before him. Kneel, brother, the Crow's-Eye commanded. I am your king. I am your god. Worship me, and I will raise you up to be my priest.